Just back up. We're going to back up a tiny bit because I think I left out a line at the end yesterday. Samach Tes Amud Aleph. Mustafa Mermua Kameder of Huna Breder of Yeshua. About 10 lines up on Samach Tes Amud Aleph. We said that a Ben Sayru Meir can he can become a Ben Sayru Meir between maybe stay Cyrus until he's Hikaf until Hakavus Achi Yaakov Zaken Atachten, until it's fully complete the Hekab. So that's so we had said that this is 3 months because it's tied to when he's able to be recognized as a father. He's first able to have a child when he becomes a gadol, when he's maybe Shtei Cyrus. A normal woman is pregnant for 9 months, and she's noticeably pregnant after 3 months, a third of that time. But even though some people give birth, some women give birth after 7 months, and so therefore she would be a nicker much earlier. She would be nicker after 2 1/3 months. We say zil basa ruba. We go after the roiv, and therefore a roiv nashim give birth to 9 months, and therefore it's only going to be 3 months. Only if within, even if it's within more than 2 1/3 months, which some women be nicker by then, it's still he's not considered gadol because we go after the roiv. So Amrua Kameder of Huna Breder of Yeshua Amaluhu Ubedina Fashas Miazlina Basaruba. Do we really go after a roiv and get this Ben Sayru Meira killed because of a roiv, even though it's possible he would be considered to have aged out of the program? That we try to save people when it comes to dinei nefashos, and the Ada, meaning the Sanhedrin, has to be careful to try to save him. But at Amali Zil Basarua, and you're saying we should go Basaraiv, we try to find every possible way of avoiding killing people. Adrua Kamei de Ravina, they brought Ravina, Amale Abdina Fashal Azina Basaruba, we don't go Basaruba Vatnan. We had this earlier that if one aide, a Nadine Nefasha, says that the incident happened on the 2nd day, and one says it happened on the 3rd day. Edus and Kayamas. That doesn't invalidate their edus, that's not a stira that invalidates. One knew about that this was an extra day in the month, and one didn't. So we can explain away the discrepancy. If we don't say Zilba Saruba and Din Nafash, Nema Hanitavka Kamsadi, Krushika, Hudika Makrashi Yadadi. If we're going to seize on any possibility of avoiding killing someone, executing someone in Din Nafashis, why would we assume that their discrepancy can be answered by saying it's Iber Chaydish? No, say that they're Adarabba, say that they're Makrash one another, and they each one means the day that they said. It's extremely common to make a mistake of one day. People generally don't know. We don't count that as a mistake. So we say we go basarov to even to convict. A woman who is, once she's 3 years old, so her bia is considered a bia, and she can be miskadeshes for bia, meaning obviously it doesn't mean that if she accepts kedushin from a man that will be helpful. What it means is that if her father married her off, that bia is considered, her father provides the das, and the bia to her is considered a bia. In Baala Yavam Kana, if a Yavam who can be Kaina and Isha, his Yavama Balkarcha, if he's Ba on the Yavama once she's 3 years old, that's Kaina. If a woman is married in one of the ways we discussed, like her father married her off, and someone's born her, if she's over 3 years old, that's a bia, that's mechayiv al teishes ish, umatama es boyel lamata mishka v'tachta ke'elyon. In addition, it will make a be metama a nida the same way as a mishkav tachta ke'elyon, which is there's a higher level of tumah that happens for a nida when someone's born a nida, but it has to be bia. So that bia will apply to a girl who's more than 3 years old. Nisis l'kayin achelis b'truma. If she's married to a kayin, she gets truma, meaning her nesuin is considered a nesuin. The bia is considered a bia to make her capable of eating truma. Ba'alachem and apsulim pasul and akuna. If one of the psulim, like a mamzer, is born her, that will pasul her from the kuna. And ba'alachem mikol arayis amrus b'Torah. And if one of the arayis in the Torah is born her, u'matan aleh, she'll get misa, meaning if let's say she's born her brother or her father or her son. And v'hi p'tura, and she's going to be patur because obviously she's a kid. She's she's not a barayin yet. Anyway, so this is the brisa. Frekta Gemara. Now we're getting back to our question about my ema island is he. The last thing that we said is that if she's born on one of the arayas, she's going to be chayiv. Why do we say
they'll be chayiv?
They'll be chayiv, right? Not she. That one of the things we said is that if she gets married, she's going to the person who's born is going to be chayiv. How could you be mechayiv while she's a ketana, even if it's a bia, but we don't know yet? Maybe when she grows up, it'll turn out she's an islandess. It was not a kedushin. So the person who was born her, when she was an Eishes Ish, was not. She wasn't really an Eishes Ish because the kedushin was al tonight that she's not an islandess. I died the dachil kodesh. Elav davrina and zilba saruba. V'roiv nashim lavayin listeninu. Again, it must be because of the same concept that we say we go zilba saruba. So my chayv carbon. When we say that she's chayiv, it means only a carbon. It doesn't mean that he's chayiv. It means he's chayiv a carbon if he did it b'shayir. At the end, we said by one of the arayas that she gets killed, that he gets killed. I'm sorry, if he's born her. And one of the included in that is someone who would be a relative through marriage, right? If it would be his father's sister's husband, I think that would be a erva or his kalosai. One of the various types of arayas that are chayim that come through marriage, and if the marriage, I'm sorry. So how do we know that the marriage is a real marriage? If she's married, if she's only married, and it turns out later that she's not really married, how could she get killed? So we're talking about where her father was born. It's not a curva through marriage. From what do we have to go with Erva? Why can we go with Eishes Ish?
So
we're understanding Mamasan is only going on the last thing at this point. We're switching over. It's the Gemara just made a quick switch. So we're assuming that it refers to the thing that was immediately preceding before it said Mamasan Allah. Only one, the Arayas, not the eighth.
It's only on the last thing.
Because we don't want to have a raya. We're trying to avoid the raya that we go basaroiv and we say it's not honest. We're trying to give an answer. If you hold that you don't say basaruba, you'll have to say that this mumasan is only going on a rayas and therefore it doesn't implicate marriage because then there's a possibility it's an islandess. But it's talking about avia. So avia is we know what it is. It's a given. She's always going to be avia. It says it could be any of the arais, but for instance, and that could be even those that come through marriage, like his mother-in-law or his daughter-in-law, his stepmother, who's through marriage. We just have to give a general answer. We're talking about where the man was makabel this Katana, even if she's an islandess. He explicitly said that I don't care if she's an islandess, in which case Kedushin would be typhus, and we don't have to come on to a rive.
Unless someone who can't have children?
An islandess is someone who's because he doesn't even have simonim, the normal indications of male or female. Like it's mixed up. She has like a deep voice and different things. We have it back in Yavamas. Tanaraban, Hamselelis b'mna katan. Someone who's essentially molesting, he's abusing a small boy, the heraba. And in the course, this woman, while she was doing this to this boy, heraba, he was ma'ara in her. He began bia, the beginning of bia. Beishamai pasla min hakuna. Beishamai says that this woman is pasal kahuna. It was her own son. So that's an erva. So she becomes pasal kahuna. She becomes a zaina. B'sil machshirin. B'sil says it's kosher. As we're going to see, B'sil says that this is not a bia, and therefore it's not enough to pasal a lakuna. Amar of Chia Breder Rav Arachnini, Amar of Chizda, V'amila, Amar of Chizda, Amar Ziri, Hakol Moedim Ben Tishashan V'yamechat Shebiyase Bia. Everyone agrees that a boy over 9, that his bia is a technical bia. It's a physical bia. Pachas Ben Shmoina She'en Biyase Bia. Less than 8, it's not. L'nechzu Ben Shmoina. The only question is going to be 8 years old. Beishamai Savi Gaminim Madaris Harishainim. Beishamai says we can learn out from the earlier Dairis, as the Gemara is going to explain at great length. We're going to give examples of boys who had children at 8 years old. Still says, even though it could be that that by David HaMelech it happened, by Shlomo HaMelech it happened, or by we'll see all the different cases, by Achitofel and Shlomo, it doesn't not relevant to now. The Dairis Rishon Minal. Where does it come from? The Dairis Rishon that we see that someone had a child at 8 years old. Dailed. Bathsheba was the daughter of Eliam, who was the wife of Uriah Hachiti. Yuksev Eliam ben Achitofel Hagiloni. And Achitofel was the father of Eliam, right? So Bathsheba was the daughter of Eliam, and Eliam was the son of Achitofel. So Achitofel was Bathsheba's grandfather. Bathsheba was the father of Shlomo. Bavur Hashem. They called Shlomo, this is where Shlomo was born. He was called Yedidya. And at that point, there was a Maisa with the same time that Shlomo was born. There was a Maisa with his older brother, Avshalom, that was the beginning of the end, where Avshalom killed Amnon. So that happened at the time of Shlomo's birth. Avshalom Baruch Vayelich Keshura. I'm sorry, I skipped something. After 2 years, Avshalom went. So there's 2 years from Shlomo's birth. Then there was 3 years after that, so a total of 5 years that from the time of Shlomo's birth. And Avshalom stayed in Yerushalayim 2 years. And he didn't see the Melech. This is the beginning of the rebellion of Avshalom, and again, that was at the time that Shlomo was 7 years old. Now, the 40 years referenced here is a reference from the time that they asked Shmuel to appoint a king, and he appointed Shaul. He 3 years later he appointed Shaul. But this was 37 years into David's kingdom. Achitofel saw that Avshalom, he was advising him on his rebellion. He didn't follow his advice to be vigorously pursue David, and he realized that the rebellion was doomed. So he took his chamar and he went to his house, Alira, to his town, he gave instructions to his family, and he killed himself because he committed suicide because he knew that he was doomed. People who are people of blood and deceit, they're not going to reach half of the years. a normal lifespan is 70 years, they don't even reach half of that. They reach to 34. The Tanya, Doeg was one of the people referenced that he only reached 34. He was one of the conspirators in the rebellion. Achitofel was 33. Since he committed suicide, he had 1 year less than the amount that he was supposed to have. Kama hava lahu tlas and utlas. That's 33. So Achitofel lived a total of 33 years. Now he had a great grandson, Shlomo, right? So Dal Sheva Dahava Shlomo. Shlomo was already 7 years old at the time that Achitofel killed himself. Pashlahu Asem V'Shis. That leaves over 26. Dal Tartishnin Latlasi. If he was his great grandfather, there had to have been 3 intervening pregnancies. So we take off 3 years for the 3 pregnancies, even though it's only 9 months. But you add on a month for. I'm sorry, it's 2 years. So 2 years, it could be 7 months, a 7-month pregnancy, and you add on 1 month from the time she becomes Nisaber, and essentially it comes out to 2 years. So you have, from the 26, you only have 24. The Tamni Eyelid. Each one of the Dairis, each one of the generations must have been 8 years. So each person gave birth, each one of the grandfather and the great-grandfather, the grandfather, and the and the father all gave birth at 8 years, or the grandmother actually. So you see that a man can give birth, can impregnate a woman when he is 8 years old. So it can be maybe the father and the father and the great-grandfather both gave birth at 9. Bathsheba, his mother, so I'm saying the grandfather and great-grandfather both gave birth at 9. Bathsheba was Shlomo's mother, Alida B'Shis. She gave birth at 6. How do you know it's distributed evenly? It's a barrier, because women mature faster. This wasn't even the first child of Bathsheba's. So even if you said it was even, she would have been a minimum of 7 years old. So you have to come from a different source. Terach. These are the children of Terach. Terach Chaylid is Avram, Es Nachar, Es Haran. Terach gave birth to Avram and Nachar and Haran. So the order in the pasuk is Nachar and Haran. Avram was the oldest. Avram Gadol Minachana, Nachar Meharan Shana. So they each, at least, Avram was 2 years old, and Nimsa Avram Gadol Shtei Shana Meharan. He was 2 years older than Haran. Avram took a wife. Amar Yitzchak Yiska, and then Avram took Yiska. Amar Yitzchak Yiska zu Sarah. Yiska is Sarah. Because she was imbued with Ruach HaKodesh, because she had Ruach HaKodesh. Everyone talked about her beauty. So this Yiska, who was really Sarah, was the daughter of Haran, who was the younger brother by 2 years of Avram at this point, the Gemara says. It says when he got the news, Avram got the news of Yitzchak's birth, he laughed and he said, how can my wife give birth when she's already 90 years old? So Kamakash Avram is Sarah, Eser Shnit. Avram was 10 years older than Sarah. And he was 2 years older than her father. Her father, Haran, it seems, right? We said Avram and Nachar and Sarah and Haran. So Avram was 2 years older than Haran. So he was 2 years older than Haran. If Sarah was only 10 years, my bug got in my coffee. Avram was only 10 years older than Sarah, and she was born to his younger brother by 2 years. That means his younger brother couldn't have had her as a child before he was 8 years old. She must have been 8 years old. So the Lord says, no, maybe Avram was the youngest of the brothers. And they were just, he said Avram first because he was the wisest, he was the biggest chacham, but not because he was the oldest. Teda, the chashav lukra derech chachmas. And where else do we see that the Torah lists brothers in the order of their wisdom and not necessarily in their age? Noach was 500 years old. He first started having children when he was 500 years old, and he had Shem, Cham, and Yafes. Shem gadol micham shana, Cham gadol miyafes shana. It would seem that Shem was 2 years older from Yafes. Nimtza Shem gadol miyafes shtei shanim. So Shem is 2 years older than Yafes. The Mabul happened 100 years after Noach, it would seem, gave birth to Shem. And that was when he was 600 years old. Ela told the Shem b'ma'ashana v'yayled esarpachshad shnasayim achar Mabul. It says that Shem had his first son when he was 100 years old, when it was 2 years after the Mabul. Ben me'ashana bar me'ah v'tadishna. He wasn't 100 years old. If Shem was born, was the oldest, and he was born when Noach was 500, and then Mabul happened when Noach was 600, at 2 years after the Mabul, he was 102. Shem was really the youngest, and they were just saying Derech Chachmasan, and Eina Chanami, he had a child 2 years after the Mabul when he was 100. He was only 100 years old because he was born 2 years later. Achanami Derech Chachmasan Kachashavlu. Amar of Kahana, Amrisa L'Shmaisa Kamei Rav Zvid Min Haradoya, Amali, Atam Echacha Masnisu. Is this where we get? So we have we're going to bring you a different raya that in the olden days, people gave birth at 8. We bring it from a different place. L'shem yulad gam hu avi kol b'nei ever achi yefes hagadol. It says, we bring another raya that Shem was the youngest son. Yeah, because it says Shem had a son hu avi kol b'nei ever achi yefes hagadol, and he was the brother of his older brother Yefes. Yefes hagadol shebachav hava. So you see from this pasuk, it says explicitly Yefes was the oldest brother. And so we're back to no problem. Where do we see that children were born to 8-year-old fathers? I mean, but Sal ben Uri ben Chur, but Sal was the grandson of Chur. Kalev was the father of Chur. Betzal built a Mishkan when he was 13, because you have to be a minimum of 13 in order to work on the Mishkan. Pasuk calls him an Ish. Everyone who worked on the Mishkan was an Ish. They were all Gedolim. The Tanya. So we have two facts. We know that Betzal was the great grandson of Kalev, and we know that Betzal started building the Mishkan when he was 13. The Tanya Shana Rishayna Asa Mishkan, Asa Moshe Mishkan, Shniya Hika Mishkan, the Shalach Meraglim. And the following year, after they built the Mishkan, Moshe sent the Meraglim. Uksiv ben Aboim Shana Neichi b'Shalach Moshe Eved Hashem. Kalev said he was 40 years old when he was sent out as the Meraglim, at which point Betzal was 14 years old. It was a year after he had already built the Mishkan. That was 1 year later, the second year of coming out of Mitzrayim. I don't know why it has to say that. So Kalev was 40 years old. Dal ar besa to have a Betzal. Take out the 14, that Betzal was already 14 years old. Pashlu Asam Veshis leaves you over 26 years. Dal Tatishni, the Tlasa Iburi. You leave out the 2 years of the 3 pregnancies. Find that each one was at 8 years because none of them were women. It was all father after father. And 26 years, there were 3 generations that proves that each one gave birth, father to child at 8 years old.
Did they make Kedushin before Bar Mitzvah or their Tana?
It was before Mount Torah. Yeah. He did, yeah. Ben V'loi Bas. The pasuk says that a Ben Sairamer can only be a son, not a daughter. Tanya Amar Shem Bedin Hu Shetei Bas Ru'uya Lias Ke Ben Sairamer. Really, a girl should also be a Ben Sairamer. Shakol Mitzuyan Esel B'Aveira, because they're more Shchiach Ta'Aveira. They're more of people gather around them more. Exeris HaKosav ben v'loy bas, but the Torah says ben v'loy bas. It's not a svara, it's Exeris HaKosav.
Which way are we talking about? Stealing?
We're talking about being killed for stealing and drinking.
The women are more susceptible to that?
So Rashi says, "Shakol mitzvin etzel haver she zayla v'sayva b'katnusa." If she's going to be involved in drinking and eating when she's young, soifa kshaloi timsa limuda imedus b'parshas drachim meraglas habrias la'avera b'shvil esnan. She's going to end up, selling herself to support her addiction, which is a very, very common scenario.
So for the women to go out stealing, that's
No, well, the point is that if she's stealing now, she steals from her parents money to buy wine and meat when she's so young. So we say by a boy, inevitably he's going to become a gan. For a girl, she's inevitably going to become a zayna. But the point is that eventually she's going to come to a bad end, and it's even more likely that a girl will become a zayna if she's in the grip of an addiction than boys will become ganavim. That's what the Gemara says. Yeah.
Or it's easier.
It's easier or more right. She's more susceptible because it's easier. If I wasn't in a rush, I had such an interesting story. It's like the Mishnah. From when does a ben sayro meir become chayiv? Mishiyachol tartima basar v'yishta chatzi lug yain. When he eats a tartima of basar and a chatzi lug yain, peyatalki, which we're going to see in the Gemara is tartima is a half of a mana, and a chatzi lug of good wine. That means even if it's not such good wine, you would have to drink more. Rabbi Yossi, I'm a mana basa of a lug yain. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says twice as much. It's a whole mana and a lug of yain. Achal b'chaburas mitzvah. If he ate it as part of a sudas mitzvah, achal b'ibra achodesh, or he ate it when they celebrated they would make a big suda to let everyone know that they're being ma'aber the chodesh. They're adding on it the day to the chodesh. Achal ma'aser sheni b'shalayim. If it's eating ma'aser sheni b'shalayim, which is again a mitzvah. Or if it's an avera, achal nevelus utreish v'shkatzim rumasim. If he ate something that he's not allowed to eat. Achal tevel or ma'aser rishon shalei not shumasa. If he ate tevel or ate ma'aser rishon, that trumas ma'aser wasn't taken from it. Or ma'aser sheni ate ma'aser sheni v'hektish. Ma'aser sheni chutz l'shalayim v'hektish le'niftu, and hektish that was not taken off. Achal davash hu mitzvah v'davash hu avera. If he eats something mitzvah or an avera, the Gemara is going to explain what is this adding on. We already gave examples of things that are mitzvahs and averas. Achal kol ma'achav v'le'achal basa. If he ate everything and he didn't eat basa, shasa kol ma'achav v'le'shasa yain. If he ate all kinds of drinks and he didn't drink wine, and that's been ceremony. Actually, yachal basa v'yishte yain. He has to drink wine and eat basa specifically. Shenema zayil v'sayveya. The pasuk used a lashon. The ben ceremony is zayil v'sayva. V'al b'shem raya l'davar. Even though we don't have a limit for that, zechel davar shenema al ti b'sayve yayin b'zayil le'basar lamay. We call those who drink wine sayve yayin, which is sayva, and zayl basar zaylal. So that this pasuk. So we're not saying it's a limud, but it's indication.
What about the rest of it? The mitzvah, the avera stuff. Where do you see that from the pasuk?
No, it's not. No, this is just on the zayl of the sayva part. This is just going back on what the immediately preceding thing that we said. The pasuk says basa v'yayin. But this is now we're talking about specifically the part. All these things, the mitzvah and all the avera, it's all a svara. It's not from the pasuk. That's a svara that these are things. If a person is doing a mitzvah, he's not going to end up becoming a thief. If he's doing an avera, it's not something that he's going to continue doing. He's not going to find that it has to do with the chabura, like we're going to say, of 10 people. It's not going to continue happening if it's a mitzvah or an avera. Amr Zera, Tartima Zani Yadei Mao. I don't know how much this Tartima is. Elamitasha Kafel Rabbi Yossi Biyayin Nimtza Kaivel Af Bebasa. And it's Tartima Chatzim Mana. He's half. The Tanakama was half of Rabbi Yossi. So Lagabi the Yayin. So he's also half as far as the Basa. So it means a Chatzim Mana. Amr Rav Chanan bar Mulda, Amr Rav Huna. It's only if he gets cheap wine and cheap meat, if he gets it for a cheap price. B'yishta. T'chsev zoil v'seiva. So zoil is a lashon of zoil. So we learn from that. It's not, I don't think this is a asmachta, but the point is it has to be, if the guy is going to, reserve cut and buying meat, he's not going to be able to maintain that. We don't worry that he's going to be stealing to keep that up. Rav Chana bar Milda Amar Rav Huna ene chayav ad sheyochel basar chayav yishte yain chay. He's only chayav if he eats basar that's raw and fresh wine. Ini v'haraba Rav Yosef Dami Chavayu ochel basar chayav yishte yain chay ein anasa ben tzayru meir. It's not that good. Cooked meat is better than raw meat, and aged wine is better than raw wine. Amrina yain chay. Mazik v'loy mazik, basar chay basha v'loy bashal. It means in between. Yain, the best wine is wine that was partially diluted. They used to always dilute the wine, so it's undiluted wine is not good. It's too strong. But if it's partially diluted, that's the most enticing. And the same thing, chay basha v'loy bashal, medium rare is the best tasting meat. If it's not entirely raw but not entirely cooked. Kabasa kiva da'achli ganvi. It's not really what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara is really saying that it's like the way that the Ganavim eat it. Once he gets used to eating the way the Ganavim eat, it's more likely someday he's going to steal and join with the Ganav. If he ate salted meat and drank wine straight out of the press, he doesn't become a ben Seirumara. Tan Hassam, Erev Tisha B'Av, what is the shiurim of that? So the Gemara explains. Tan Hassam, Erev Tisha B'Av, on the Suda right before Tisha B'Av, a person should not eat two cooked things. That's why we only eat an egg. And he shouldn't drink meat and he shouldn't drink wine. Tana, he is allowed to drink salted meat because salted meat is like that's the way they used to preserve meat. They would salt it. It didn't taste very good already. It became like a beef jerky, which people didn't have the mishigas that was a treat. But he could drink wine that was straight out of the wine press. How long is basam aliyach? That means how long before it becomes basam aliyach? As long as the amount of time of a shlamim, which is 2 days and 1 night. As long as it's fermenting. But Tanya, yain, how much is fermenting? Yain taisa. As long as wine is fermenting, there's no chiyuv of giloi that you're not supposed to drink uncovered liquids. But yain, while it's fermenting, the snakes stay away from it, so you don't have to worry that they put their venom in it. But kamat tzisasei shloishiyam, 3 days. So during that time, it's so that's what you're allowed to eat on Tisha B'Av. If it's yain the first 3 days, and your basam aliyach after 2 days and 1 night. Hachamai, do we apply these same rules for a ben Seirumai that we're going to say that the same as those things that are allowed for Tisha B'Av, Erev Tisha B'Av are also they're not so good, and therefore they're not going to make someone a ben Seirumai. So come on now, Hasam mishum simchahu. Over there it's al simcha. Calls manchu kishlamim nami is be simcha. If it's within the first day and 2 days and 1 night, there still is simcha. It hasn't gotten salted. But over here, it has to be that it will draw him in. As soon as it gets salted, it's no longer so enticing. So therefore, as soon as it gets salted, he's going to be excluded. It's not going to have a din ben Seirumar. The yain ad ben b'yayim, we said wine until, and yain is going to be until 40 days. It's not going to be enough to be mamshechem. It's not going to be like the din of Tisha B'Av, that after 3 days, that within the first 3 days, he can, it's not going to be so tasty, and therefore you're not allowed to drink it. But after 3 days, he's no longer allowed to drink it. But over here, we need a higher level of hamshacha that has to really draw him in. So it has to be 40 days aged. The whole purpose of wine in the world is to console mourners, to lighten their load, and to give a reward to Rishayim that they're going to drink wine in this world, as we see throughout Shas, that often the Torah gives the Rishayim a good time, so that they won't be left with anything, any reward in Olam Haba. Give beer, give wine to the lost, meaning to the mourner. I'm sorry, that's Tunu La'Ovid is to the, you give wine to the person who's lost, the lost soul, who's the Rasha. Yain Lamari Nefesh, and you give wine to those who are bitter, meaning to those who are mourners. Don't look at the wine because it's red. Don't look at wine because in this world it makes their faces red. They drink and they get a red face. But when they come to Olam Haba, they're going to have a white face. They're not going to have any mitzvahs. Don't look at wine because its end is blood. It's not going to end well for you. You're going to end up doing bad things. Rav Kahana Rami, Ksiv Tirash, Vakurinan Tirosh. It's written without a vav, and we read it with a vav. Zacha Nase Rosh. If he's Zaycha when he drinks wine, it will make him happy. Lo Zacha Nase Rosh. But if he's not Zaycha, it's going to bring him to the poorhouse. Rav Rami, Ksiv Yismach Vakurinan Yishmach. Ksiv Yishmach with a shin. Vakurinan Yismach with a samach, with a sin. Zacha Mesamchai. If he's Zaycha, he gets Simcha with a sin. Lo Zacha Mishamameyu. It will destroy him. So with the shin is a mashmayis of mishamamay. It destroys him. He says, chamra, wine and smell, good smelling things, pitchin can make a person smarter, meaning if you're wise, if you use it in the proper amounts, it can be helpful. It will help you out of when you're sad, and it could be misameach you. Amar Raman Breder of Shim Barab Amar of Chanina. Who has it is an expression of woe. Lemi avay, another expression of woe. Lemi madanim, who has what is madanim? I forgot already. Madanim, I think it means troubles. Lemi siach, who has fights. Lemi petzaim, who has petzaim chinam, who has a lot of wounds. Lemi chachlil senayim, who has reddened eyes. Lema akam alayayin, to those who hang around with wine, those who pick the good wines. He also Rav Dimi Amar Amri b'Marava. They say to Marava, Haikra Mandadarish le Meireshel Seifa Midrash. You can learn that who is going. You could say that who is going to get all these problems? The people who drink wine. You could do it the other way around. That it's referring to who should drink wine. It's referring to, like we said before, the aval and the person who does averis. The Sefer L'Reisha Midrash Darsh. Over Glugloy, Yud Gimel Vav and Nemru B'Yayin. In the parsha of wine that's first introduced by Noach, it says Vav. There's a Vav in the pasuk 13 times. Vayichal Noach Ish Adama. That's the first Vav. Vayeta Kerem, and he planted a vineyard. Vayashmin Hayayin. He's the third. That's the third. Vayishkar, and he became drunk. Fourth, Vayiskal, B'Soich Ha'oloi, and he was uncovered in his tent. That's the fifth. Vayeracham, that's the sixth. Avi Kanan, that's Ervas Aviv. Vayaged, that's the seventh. He told L'shnei Achot, to his two brothers, Bachutz, Vayikach, Vayefes, Shem Vayefes, Es Hasimla, Vayasimo, Al Shem Shneim, Vayechu Acharanis. They took the cloth and they put it on top of, on their shoulders, and they went backwards. Vayichzu es ervas avim. They covered their father's erva upneim, and they didn't see him. Vayikatz Noach miyenai, and Noach woke up. Vayedus she'asel. He knew what happened. The Noach cut his youngest son. So there were 13 vavim in that pasuk, and it all started from Noach drinking wine. That's how we got into that situation. So Rav Shmuel Chad Amar Sarsu. Rav Shmuel once says that his son Cham was Mesarasim, he castrated him. But Chadam Rabbi, he was born him. Mandam Mesarasim, Mitasha Kilkul B'Revi, Killu B'Revi. Since his Cham didn't want him to have any additional sons, so he was Mesarasim, and he stopped him from having a fourth son. Therefore, Noach cursed Cham with his fourth son would be Canaan. Mandam Rabbi, Gomer Vayera, he made a Gzer Shok, Zevacha Vayar. Vayar Cham Avi Kanan es Ervas Aviv. Uksiv Hasam Vayar Shechem ben Chamar. It says by Dina, this is a lashon of Bia, so that's how we know this is Revia. So Bishlam Mandor Sayu Mishum Hachi Killo Berevi. Elamanda Merava Maishna Vi Nilta behedya. Why does he say that? Why did he curse him on the fourth? Let him give the curse directly to Chum. It's like Havi. No, according to Man Amar, that it was Rivoi. That means it was both. It was both Rivoi and Cersei, but it's not the exclusion of one, and therefore it was proper to give it onto his son. And he planted a vineyard. You should have learned from Adam Rishon, because his Adam Rishon was chata because of wine. Says the Eitz Hadas by Adam Rishon was a grape. The Tanya Remeya, I'm Adam Rishon men Gavin Haya. All the woes of people come from wine, and that was from Adam Rishon. It was wheat. Until a child is old enough to eat bread, he's not old enough to speak. So that's why it's called Eitz Hadas, because it comes at the time that a person becomes able, gets das. That it was the fig, because that's what they were fixed up. They were covered with fig leaves. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll continue more with wine, another amud of wine, Bez Shem, tonight or tomorrow. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you, Lizzie.
Yeah, likewise.
Take care.